Now broadcasting from the Next Gen Conservative Studio in sunny South Florida, bringing you the latest in politics, current events, and pop culture. This is the Whitfield Report with Sam Whitfield.
Alrighty.
Yeah, baby!
Alrighty, everyone. We are here for the Whitfield Report. This episode is the Tuesday edition of the show. And I want to thank you for tuning in live whenever you're listening to this in the past, present, future hour. I am your host, Sam Whitfield, here in sunny South Florida. And I am joined today by my not so secret government man that I've referenced on the show before. In all actuality, my guest today is Mr. Luke Nickless, and I just want to brag on him a bit. I've known he's literally my brother from another mother. I've known him.
Sure.
We've known each other for, 21 years, about?
Yeah, we met in kindergarten, so it's been a long time.
So, our friendship, essentially, is older than some of the audience members of this show, which is pretty amazing.
What's your target market here? What are you looking for in an audience member?
Well, we have audience members ranging from 18 to mid 60s even.
I've met some of them. I was in that Discord chat with you last time I was in Florida, and that was a good time. Yeah,
you met Apex, you met Saucin, you met Scorpio.
Yeah. Scorpio was good with his wife too. I think he had his wife on the line. That was fun.
You met all the zany, wacky internet characters I hang
out
with.
Love it, yes.
But you're one of the zaniest creatures that I've hung out with, in real life.
I have my moments.
It's hard for me to believe that we've known each other for that long, sir. But, I don't want to just speak for you, so, just briefly, if you'd like, just share a little bit of background. Who are you, and why should the audience care that, you're on here, other than the fact that you're my best friend, and you chose to listen to this podcast, guys, so obviously...
You're locked in.
Yeah. So...
I can totally share. I'm happy to. First off, thanks for having me on the show, Sam. I know it's been a while. My last time on one of your shows was, I like to call it Whitfield Nation. I know we're on the Whitfield Report, but Whitfield Nation was great. And anything to do with your, radio life, it's like you're in Whitfield Nation, So
right.
I have my green card, I have my, my visa, I'm visiting the Whitfield Nation, and I get the pleasure and the honor to speak with the president of Whitfield Nation. So it's good to be here with you.
Well, you're a natural, as far as I'm concerned, you're like a natural born citizen.
Oh, good. Okay, yeah. What do they call it in Germany? It's
a neutral.
So Germany has it's jus sanguinis, which is Latin for by blood. Instead of a naturalization process, they have, I think it's called jus sanguinis, Jus sanguinis, however you spell that. And it's you have to prove by blood that you are a German person, whether that be birth certificates of I think it's 1 or 2 generations back, and the rest of them are just, I don't even think they have naturalization. So you're saying I am by blood a Whitfieldian?
Yeah, well, I mean,
I would agree with that. Yeah.
In all seriousness, Luke's not kidding. We've known each other since we've known each other since kindergarten, and I mean, we were inseparable for a number of years, and then we kind of went, into different social groups somewhat in high school, like people normally do, but then we found each other, again, like after graduating high school and reconnected, and, it's funny because, like, I don't want to dive too much in here, but, like, you're a political guy. Like, that's actually what you do for a living.
Yeah.
Everyone thought I would be, like, a political science major. I chose, communications instead. And instead, you're, like, the political guy. Which... we've both had, I think, an inclination in that direction, a propensity to, the art of, governance and that. I mean, Sam, like, when we, and this is for the audience here, when Sam and I were kids, and Sam, you're still a pretty darn classy dresser. I mean, I have to be suited and booted too, which is, I love it. I think that's a great thing. But anyway, kindergarten through third grade, I was literally suit and tie every day to school. You know what I'm saying? Like, carrying around a briefcase full of cardboard money, thinking I was, some hot shit or whatever. Excuse my language if there's any... you can...
Sorry, kids.
Yeah, you can say whatever. Yeah.
Anyway, so, and you were right on that train with me. I mean, we had a lot of fun, as young lads back in the day. And we still do, as young lads. I would consider us young lads,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that the Zoomers, or, like the generation after us, the
Zoomers is what they're called now.
Yeah, that's what they call themselves. I'm not sure.
Generation Z, Generation Z. Yeah.
I mean, listen. I know that they think that we're all a bunch of old fucks now, but Oh
gosh, you should hear our interns. They're like, I don't even know what no cap and capping means, and a cool Chad. I don't even know this stuff. And I'm like, oh, did you give that tour yesterday? He was like, yeah, I'm not capping. I'm like, what the fuck does that mean? I don't know what that means. Did you give the tour or did you not give the tour? It's like, my gosh.
The thing that's funny is, like, I'm kind of, I'm in college still, but I'm a little bit older, so, like, the one thing that always amuses me is when I hear kids say that, like, oh man, that meal really slapped her, or like...
Oh, the slapping, yes, the slapping. That's a big one.
That song, that really slaps, and I'm like, what does that mean? They're like, that song is fire, and I'm like, okay, what does that mean? They're like...
So here's what I wonder. You've been on YouTube for a long time. Or wherever you post your stuff.
YouTube, Spotify.
You're all over the place. I wonder if, in particular, the YouTube algorithm, because it reads transcripts, right? That's how they pick up on somebody saying something anti-trans or whatever. So I wonder if you use more of the Gen Z words, that they'll start to... I mean, I don't know how you manipulate the algorithm, but I know there are YouTubers who do that in order to get, a follower and get followers and get up in the ranks of, a search or whatever.
Yeah.
So maybe we should just, like, in the middle of conversation say, oh, no cap, just out of random, and see if it jogs the algorithm and gets you some more, search... clickbait, whatever, I don't even know.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that would help me the most is if I had a well-endowed, young lady on here, like, playing video games, right beside me, and, if she were playing, like, Call of Duty or, whatever.
Live streaming Call of Duty in a little corner screen. Yeah,
you know,
that'd make it happen. You'd be able to say anything to anybody, and they'd be like, "Yes, I agree. That is a great point."
And also, boobs.
No scope. Oh, yes, yeah.
Yeah. You know, it's just like we're not that old to do, you know, like when we were kids, like watching someone play video games was not a thing yet. You know, like now,
I mean, we did, but it was just like at home on the couch watching your buddy play so that you could get the next turn after he got shot in GoldenEye or whatever.
Right? Yeah.
You know?
And now, like,
so much fun. Great.
And now
game.
I keep GoldenEye, like old school GoldenEye kids was that was like the creme de la creme. Still is. Still holds up well after
concurred 100%.
20 years.
So anyway, what were you saying? Nowadays,
nowadays, and this is something that my mom and I have actually talked about. Like, you know, like there are kids who there are kids who have made entire careers out of being professional video gamers. And in fact,
my cousin, I was at Thanksgiving last year. And he's always kind of been this, like, demure, like, oh, I'm going through puberty, don't talk to me, you know, and I always make a thing of, like, hey, Henry, what's going on in your world, you know, can I just, like, what's up, dude? Are you alive, you know, like, I'm a man, I've been through that shit, I know that. Anyway, but he is a fierce gamer. I mean, fierce. That is, like, he lives and breathes. And I'm like, well, are you making any money yet? He's like, no, but I'm in some competitions. And I'm like, well, good on you, man. Best of luck. I think that's great. If you can make money, you know.
Well, my stepdad has like a niece whose son is like a professional gamer. Like he actually competes like competitively.
Oh, yeah. That's serious.
And I don't know what game he plays, but like he plays one of those games, and like he's like a world champion. I think it's like Call of Duty or something. Like he's like a
they have all kinds of stuff. I mean, like we're on the surface level of this entire culture and industry. You know, I mean, there's so many different games that people are playing and interested in watching. I cannot name most of them, but I know there's really what, in my opinion, would be a totally niche game. I've never heard of it.
Right.
But it has, 2-3 million people tracking champions and watching live streams, Anyway.
And it's a job, which is crazy to me too, because for me, I just play video games for on like a Friday when I just want to relax and like turn my brain off.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if you can do what you love and make $500,000 a year doing that, rock on. Well, I mean, that's like a good deal.
Well, I mean, like that's my goal with this thing.
Yeah, totally.
But I mean, hey, if you can make money gaming too, good on you. But anyway, not to get too sidetracked.
No, but very interesting. Yeah, that's a whole market that I don't really know very much about.
I mean, and I'm I guess we're both still learning about gamer culture and whatnot.
I mean, there is this. I'm sure you're aware of this, but it's like a Twitter account or a Wall Street Bets thing where they track Nancy Pelosi's stock trades.
Oh yeah. One disclaimer I want to put out there for the folks, and I'm sure you'll appreciate this, is Luke is speaking, as his own entity. These are his opinions, and these are my opinions that I'm sharing too. These are not necessarily reflective of, his employers or of mine, even though, for right now I'm kind of self-employed, but, we're just having a casual conversation, and these remarks do not reflect his employers or the U.S. government, for that matter.
Yeah, I mean, I am one of the people, so I have some credence there for sure.
The one thing that the more conspiracy oriented members of my audience might want to remember is this must be Sam's connection to the deep state.
Oh my
right?
gosh. Yeah. I go to this great pizza shop in North D.C. 3 times a week.
Yeah. Now you're gonna get the tinfoil hat crowd going on. What does he mean by pizza? No. Honestly, I haven't found a good pizza joint since Anthony's Pizza in Denver, though.
Oh, Anthony's is rockin', man, for sure. Yeah, that's a great spot. I mean, I'm the kind of guy who likes a nice, greasy, dripping grease slice of pizza. And many people think it's, total sacrilege, but I am a ranch guy. I used to not be a ranch guy. I'm a ranch guy now.
I recently found a good wing place here in Florida, and I used to not be a blue cheese fan, but I love blue cheese now.
Yeah, the blue cheese. You gotta hop on that train for sure. Yeah.
Did your internet freeze?
We went to that Celtic Ray together down in what was it, Naples? Oh gosh, it's my show now. Sam is frozen. That's great. Yes, victory is mine. Sam, are you there? So he lives pretty near an airport, and oftentimes, it's just not the best of service there. So a plane will fly over, whatever. We did have this thing the other day in D.C. where the Nats were playing at the Nationals field, which is in a place called Navy Yard, which is south of the hill. The mall goes like this, and south of the mall is the Potomac River, and then down there is Navy Yard, and that's where the Nationals field is. So there's this small, it's not a prop, no, it was a prop aircraft. It's a prop aircraft. It's like a skydiving aircraft that's circling around the city, and I'm leaving work. It's 6 o'clock in the evening on Friday, and all of a sudden, all the security is bristling like a porcupine. They're yelling at people, get out of the buildings, get out of the buildings. There's an aircraft flying around, get out of the buildings. We're all like, what is going on? So we vacate the area, and lo and behold, it was U.S. Army paratroopers, the Golden Knights or something like that, who were jumping into Nats Stadium and had contacted the FAA and had told them, hey, we're flying in the most restricted airspace in the world, and we're dropping some parachuters into the field. And for some reason, they just did not contact the Capitol Police, which was a mistake. But you live and you learn, I guess.
Welcome back, apologize.
Sam. Yeah, I just took over the show. You're now on the Luke Report. Welcome. We're glad to have everybody. This is my guest, Sam. Sam and I go way back.
I appreciate you filling in for me. What I was beginning to ask you a little bit about your job, and then Nancy Pelosi disconnected my internet or something like that. I guess so you're originally from Colorado, as am I. What made you decide to major in political science?
Honestly, I knew I was bad at math, and I sat down and prayed and was like, what am I going to do with my life? I've had an interest in politics. It'd be kind of fun, to do campaign work, maybe run for state office, later in life, once all the scandal is behind me. Just kidding. But anyway, So yeah, I mean, it was more of like a process of elimination, and I'd done debate team in high school and really, really enjoyed it, and knew that the natural progression of those, I mean, you could call them talents, I don't know what you'd call them, but inclinations, I guess. I know I've used that word a few times, but it's a good word, an inclination, to the realm of politics and governance and that kind of thing. It just felt like a natural move for me. Yeah.
Shout out to Scotty Esserman, by the way.
Totally, yeah. Scott Esserman was awesome, dude. Yeah.
Who was my debate teacher for about a year. And then
I remember my first speech in his class was on the Saddam Hussein's gassing of the Kurdish people. And I started the speech off. He's like, make sure you have an attention grabber or a hook, you know, at the beginning of your speech. And what I did at the beginning of my speech was just screamed, like bloody murder screamed. And the whole class was like, what is this kid doing? And I'm like, that is the sound of 100,000 Kurds choking on sarin gas. It was, I mean, that's a very serious topic, but I was a kid, and that was, you know, my attention grabber, which is not, like, very artful, but whatever.
I remember when he had us do improv, and
yeah,
that was
that.
And, well, I was okay about it, but I always, my mind always went into the gutter when doing improv.
That's like Michael Scott status.
I mean,
you know.
I mean, listen. The Office was like a huge show when we were. When we were going up to
legendary, no doubt about it. I just watched so I got out of Lent, and you know, one of the things that I was like, you know what, I don't need this for Lent. I need to refocus. It was actually very intense Lent, which was awesome. You know, I had a group of brothers who joined me in this pretty ascetic program, which was great. It's called Exodus 90, but they have a version called Exodus Lent, which I highly recommend for anyone trying to, like, dig in, you know, Exodus 90. It's like exodus90.com. I'm not being paid by them. It's just a really good program. Anyway, I gave up, if you will, you know, watching TV or YouTube or anything like that without people. I could only do it if, like, my roommates were downstairs watching a ball game. I could watch with them, you know, but I couldn't, of my own volition, go and do that. So anyway, after Lent, I dug into, you know, I've had this, like, you know, 40 days of no TV. I'm like, oh man, yes. Like, so I watched A Silent Place Part 2. Have you seen these two movies?
Oh, A Quiet Place.
A Quiet Place. Yeah, A Quiet Place. Yeah.
I watched the first one in a film class.
Pretty good. I thought it was excellent.
Yeah. And I usually don't like horror films, but I mean, it was done well, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't really seem like a horror, you know. I mean, yes, it was a little frightening at some, you know, pop-out parts, but I thought they did a great job on that. What's his name? John Krasinski or something?
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, yeah, that was a good one. Really enjoyed that movie. And the second one is pretty good, too. For sure, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's one that didn't need a sequel, but I from what I hear, the sequel is actually pretty good. So
yeah, it was. I would recommend it, you know.
So I think I was trying to ask you, like, how you got into, you know, what made you decide to, like, major in politics. I remember, like, there were a couple friends that were like, oh, this is all Sam's fault. Like, he got his claws into Luke and, like, made him major into poli-sci. And I'm like, Well, if it went up to me, Luke would have majored in communications just like I did, but, you know.
Which could have been beneficial. Yeah, if there's any group of staffers that rises really quickly on the hill, it's the comms guys. I mean, they, you know, that's if they know what they're doing, if they have good connections at Fox News or OANN or Newsmax or whatever, and they're able to poll on that web and get their boss on, you know, Varney or Mornings with Maria or whatever, they're going to make money and rise to leadership offices really quickly. You know, if they've got good tweets with good likes and a lot of followers, I mean, it's all metrics, you know. How are we influencing our constituency to, one, you know, have a full picture of what we're doing on their behalf, and two, like, how do we, you know, inform them of things that they might not know what's going on? You know, because the constituents have sent this man or woman, their delegate, their congressman, to the District of Columbia to fight for them and to study issues that they don't have the time or the wherewithal, you know, or most of them don't even have the desire to study what we're doing every day, you know. And so that's right. Representative government. You know, you put somebody into that place to do that around the clock, to listen and to vote and to research and to go to committees and ask questions and grill the SecDef and do what blah, 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 you know. And so communications is all about translating the complexities of what we do in the nitty-gritty of policy in a way that's understandable. And yeah, some of the real work is lost in that translation.
So
and,
what is
it
that you do? I mean,
so essentially I'm a policy advisor. You know, like I'm what they call legislative assistant, and I have a certain portfolio of policy areas. You know, I do financial services policy, I do healthcare, ways and means, which is essentially how are we going to pay for this? What are the ways? What are the means? You know, I do science, space, and technology, particularly NASA, cryptocurrencies, and financial services. But those are like my main four. Oh, and healthcare. Healthcare is a huge one. That's a lot of what I do on a day-to-day basis. And then I staff him on one of his committees. So the onus is on me on a daily basis to like read through legislation, submit draft legislation that he wants to pass into law and get co-sponsors on and present on the floor of the House, law, to try and make law, and you know, do whatever I need to, write speeches, write questions for him, make sure he's briefed on meetings. I take a bunch of meetings all the time with, you know, different lobby groups, and I'll brief him on what they want or what they're about, you know. And then there's extraneous things. Like when I went to the district, we got to, you know, go to dinner with General Petraeus and watch him get an award and see some really cool stuff that, well, you don't think you're going to do, but then all of a sudden you're sitting down at the table and it's like, oh, shoot, like, what's up, man, you know? Like, you know, it's very rewarding. It's very rewarding, but it's also very exhausting. I mean, it's very serious work, and I take it seriously. There are people who don't, you know, and if you don't take it seriously, you should not be in the government service. If you don't think we're living in the United States, that we are sworn to defend the Constitution and to uphold its principles, you need to leave. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you lose that belief, that hope in America, you should not be in government. Period.
What do you think is the biggest misconception about working in politics?
That we're not normal people. And most of us are totally normal people who are really just trying to do the right thing.
Yeah, that's something I wanted to kind of...
the right
one
thing.
Of the reasons...
There's a disclaimer there. We're all trying to do the right thing. I know that sounds like, whatever, but, yeah, there are people. I've gotten a beer poured on my head, for telling a chick at a bar who was another staffer on the Hill that I think abortion is wrong. She literally got up and poured a beer over my head. Sam, I've told you this story. That's like, what? And she thinks, honestly, she's a believer. She thinks she's doing the right thing, And so do I. And that's why I'm yeah, it's wrong,
So political fights do happen somewhat on the Hill then.
Yeah, I think so. But for the most part, the staffers will keep it very, because, we're supposed to be professionals. We're not here for...
Sure.
We're not here to represent our own opinions. We are here to translate the opinions and beliefs of our constituents into law and into governance. That's what we're supposed to do,
Have you, and if you can answer this, that's fine, but, like, have you ever met any like, political figure that, like, you had an opinion, good or bad, of before, and then once you met them, like, it changed?
There's 435 members in the House. So
Sure.
A lot of members, you don't really know about. Like, one, I think, would be, well, in recent times, there was a man from Nebraska who just resigned his seat because of, he lied to the FBI about certain campaign finances, and he's been in office for, really solid Republican, great Catholic man. I would see him at daily mass, had a very high opinion of him. He sponsored another staffer when she was becoming a Catholic, like, really solid dude, and then, he spoke 2 lies to the FBI, and his entire career is gone. It's like, what are you doing, man? Why are you doing this? One, you're a Catholic, and that's just, yeah, you're going to have to go, do some penance and talk to God about that one, and talk to your priest about that one. But, it just was a shame. So I guess that's not really your question. It kind of is, but it's the reverse
Sure.
of what you were asking. I had a very high opinion that became a low opinion. I've ridden the elevator with AOC. I didn't talk to her, anything like that. Leader McCarthy's been by the office a few times. He's a good guy. Yeah, I don't know. That's a tough question.
Who do you think has the better wheelchair? I'm asking this because people want to see me in a drag race with Madison Cawthorn. I don't know where I would be Madison Cawthorn. Nor, like, why would I want to get into a drag race with him either? I don't,
Well, I would love, for us to, like, email Elon Musk and get you a Tesla, some kind of hover, I don't know what they're doing, some kind of badass wheelchair, and he would do it for free because it's just total philanthropic,
You and Apex Scam both have, been on me to contact Elon and whatnot.
They're like, hey man, like, I know you're doing cool shit, space stuff and other things, but I'd love you to design me a wheelchair,
Now he's taking over, Twitter and whatnot too. Which,
yeah, we'll see how that goes. Did he give a bid? Did he give an offer?
Supposedly, well, last I heard, so we're recording this on Sunday. It will be released on Tuesday, probably.
Okay.
At this point in the news cycle, for the audience, I've heard that Elon has, like, secured enough funds to supposedly just buy Twitter. But, until it's, like, official, it's not over till the fat lady sings.
Right, yeah. And they're definitely trying to box him out. And there was another, I don't know if it was SoftBank, but another investment firm has thrown their hat in that ring. Gosh, what was their name? It's not KKR. I don't know what it is, but they threw their hat in the ring.
What's interesting to me about you is that, like, you're not on social media.
No.
And yet you're in a field particularly, like, okay, like, obviously I'm in media, right? But also, so, I mean, social media is part of my job. But it could be argued that, like, politics is, also, like, deeply, like, social, like, entire, like, political, dumpster fires have been started because of social media.
Totally.
Namely, January 6th. So, like, I guess, like, I don't mean this to be, like, snide at all. I'm genuinely curious, like, I guess how have you, like, survived, like, or not really, like, survived, but, like, I guess participated in, like, the political scene without being, like, on Twitter and whatnot, because, like, every single staffer, I've met staffers and I've met, like, politicians too. They're always on their phones, like, checking Twitter or Instagram or Facebook or something.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, you're right. Our modern day politics are dependent in some sense on social media outlets as almost a public forum, a privatized public forum, if you will. We'll see how that pans out in the future. But personally, like, I don't really want a Facebook. I don't want a Twitter. I have a burner account, a fake Facebook account, but that's only to, like, go on my boss's page and, like, look at what his posts are. I don't do anything on there.
Yeah, so you just lurk basically on social media then.
Oh, did you say lurk?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, I am a lurker. Yes. Yeah. Well, basically, yeah. For one account, I just look at my boss's account. That's it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's.
But yeah, I don't think that it's super healthy. Like, I get enough emails and enough text messages and, am on Zoom enough to where it's like, I don't want to. I got a LinkedIn. That's all I got.
Yeah, people are trying to get me to, like, restart my LinkedIn, and I don't know, like, I'm already on so many, like...
Well, you're going into the job market. It might be a valuable thing to do,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's a fair point. I've kind of, I've kind of gotten to the point where, like, so the way I've always viewed social media, right, is it is what you make of it, right? Like, you can either use it not necessarily for, like, good or bad, but, like, just depending on, like, how you use it, it is what you make of it to a point.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can say that about, the internet in general. Like, we have, amazing access to, the grandest library ever conceived. I mean, this is like Alexandria times 10 trillion, I mean, there's so much information. But you also get, like, the devil's workshop. I mean, you have pornography going out to kids and, I mean, you have really, really diabolical things on the internet, So it's definitely, like most of man's innovations, something that is used for good and for just pernicious evil,
Do you think the government, because I know that this is, like, a hot, button topic, but, like, do you think the government should, like, regulate it further, or, like, Or...
Well, one opinion that I've heard from a Republican, an elected Republican, was he literally wants to butcher the whole thing. I mean, he wants to section off servers, like localized servers, geofence areas of, like spheres of influence. There are some people, one guy who's running for the 7th District in Colorado, and this is on his campaign webpage. His name is Tim Reichert. He wants to create a central clearinghouse where all of your data, your not PII, not personal identifying information, but maybe some of that actually. Any cookies or data that's kept on your web browsing or your maps or whatever would be located in a central clearinghouse, and you would rent that data out to companies that want to use it, for Google Maps or for advertising or what have you, which is an interesting idea. I mean, there's some serious pitfalls there, of course, which we could get into if you wanted. But, who controls the clearinghouse? Is this a private sector thing? Is this a public sector thing? Like, what are the regulations over that? What's the security over that? What happens if that gets breaked into, So that's a couple opinions that I've heard on it. In terms of regulation, they're businesses. They are regulated to a certain degree. I think you're talking about, like, First Amendment. Like, is this a public forum or is this a private forum? Is this the sidewalk or are you walking into a Starbucks,
Right.
That's a difficult question.
And if you don't have an answer, that's fine. That's fine too. Like, I'm not expecting you to have, like, the answer for everything. I just think the one thing that I want to, put out there, not only for you, but for the folks too, is, like, this is, I can talk to, like, politicians, I mean, there are politicians I know that I can get on here, and there are lots that I respect. There are some that I don't. But as far as, like, people who actually, like, work in the government and whatnot, as you do, Luke, like I don't want to say that you're, like, a peon, because you're not, but you do behind the scenes work, and we don't get to hear from those people very, very much. Usually, when people like me in the media do things, it's from politicians who want to come on shows to try and basically pitch their ideology or pitch a book or, a bill or what have you. It's very rare that anyone in the media is actually able to have, like, a genuine conversation with someone about the way the government works or the way the sausage is made, so to speak.
I mean, I think that's part of the benefit of your format, the way you format your show, and in long form discussions and in long form conversations is a really just a valuable thing. And like, listeners, if they want to hear all the way through, are going to have a little more stamina, and hopefully we're somewhat stimulating. I mean, my gosh, but I think that I appreciate that. I appreciate being able to come on here and share with you, for sure.
Yeah. And aside from politics, so you and I, we both grew up in Denver. I've talked a little bit about on my show about, growing up in Denver myself, and we have similar, shared experiences. Like, I was asked on a podcast I guested on last year, like, why move from Colorado to Florida, what made me decide to, shift. And part of it for me was the weather, part of it for me was family, part of it was just the desire to have like a new experience, quite frankly. But I mean, I guess I'll ask you the same question, like what made you decide ultimately to move from Denver to D.C.? I know there was a job offer there somewhat, but I mean, what was moving, from Denver to D.C. like, and what is the culture there? Is there like a big change or?
Well, Denver is in a certain sense very similar to D.C. and in that there's a lot of young people, a lot of outdoorsy folk, a lot of open, it's almost like a beach town in the summertime. People playing frisbee at the mall, like H Street, U Street. There's always bars and patios, and Navy Yard is a great place to go. There's always something happening down there. A Nats game, maybe there's a Caps game, a hockey game, something like that. It's when I first got here, it felt like a cold city, like a very transactional city. Because I was an intern trying to find a job, like cutting my teeth and figuring out what's what. And, I was an intern for, only 2 months. Right. But, once I live on Capitol Hill in a townhouse. I'm, a block away from the Jefferson Library of Congress. I'm 2 blocks from the Supreme Court. I'm 4 blocks from my House office building. I walk to work every day. Like, the metro system is great. Even Alexandria across the Potomac is a really fun place to go. Old Town Alexandria is awesome.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, old cobblestone streets, that kind of thing. But yeah, there's a very, very strong Catholic community here. We have the Catholic University of America here. We have the Basilica Shrine of the Immaculate Conception. A lot of young, intellectual Catholics and Christians as a whole. There's a lot of churches in the city. And frankly, they're pretty full on a Sunday. There's a lot of activities, youth groups, Bible studies, volunteer opportunities, the whole gamut. It's really, once you become a resident, there are very healthy, positive ways to contribute to your community and to society, and great stuff. Yeah.
I'm always curious, since DC is, it's the capital of the United States, right? Mm-hmm. It is like the political center of the country.
Yeah.
Would you say, are people more political in D.C. than elsewhere, or
you have to be careful.
Average?
You have to be careful. I think like this would be a great city to be a journalist in, because where all the staff hang out, and they go to particular bars in the city after work, and if you just sat there with your notepad and just listened, you would get a story. No problem. Guaranteed. And people do that. So the political circle, which is the House and Senate staffers, and of course the delegates, the members of Congress, the members of Congress, the staffers, the journalists, and the K Street lobbyists, who are almost like in the inner circle, those guys, if you've been here a long time, they have the scoop. They are teaching congressmen stuff, which is reasonable. They've been here a long time. They know the policy very well. But they are self-interested for their clients, and you have to take that with a grain of salt, So, yeah, your question was, is it a very political city? Yes, it is a very political city. There's a lot of people here working in government. who are not political. They're working in the DOD. They're working, or they shouldn't be political. They're working in the DOD. They're, Homeland Security, whatever, Department of Transportation, a lot of bureaucrats in the city. But the actual political core of the city is not a very big community. We're talking maybe 15,000 Hill staffers, and that's including district staff, so maybe there's 10,000 or 12,000 in the city of D.C. that are, maybe more, maybe a couple thousand more than that. I'm not totally sure, but yeah.
You kind of alluded to this earlier in the conversation with the one staff pouring a beer over your head, but how tribal is politics? Because that's the one thing I always hear complaints about. It's oh well, politics is so divisive and tribal. That's one thing you hear a lot just in general these days.
Yeah.
Do you find that that's the case, or do you find that
for the most part,
that
yes.
people actually?
So, I came from state politics, and state politics are, it's hard to be, someone with traditional convictions. You're kind of boxed out of politics in Colorado because you can't really make a move, unless we'll see how 24 goes and this year.
Do you?
Let me just think about this for a second here.
Sure.
What was the question again? I'm sorry, I totally blanked.
Are politics
Oh, are they tribal?
Okay, so
yes, yeah. Oh, emphatically, yes, yeah. But at the same time, this is my disclaimer: 60 to 80% of every piece of legislation that comes through the House is not political. It's we're going to rename a post office, or we're going to give a gold star medal, or, we're going to, make sure this office in the government is funded, like CISA, the cybersecurity on the civilian side, and they do work with the DOD. They're under the Homeland Security umbrella. Make sure that they have their proper funding. That, there's usually no debate. There is sometimes, but most of the stuff is passed, pretty, let's go, send it to the Senate, get the amendments back, get it to the president's desk, and let's move on, There is, when it comes down to bills that are not going to pass, and you're just writing them to have a media point, it's going to be totally tribal. It's going to be totally something that's important, but will never get passed,
But even, I guess, that's definitely insightful. The one thing that I've always heard, I'm asking a question, but I guess I'm kind of going to... So the one thing I've always heard about politics is it's like pro wrestling, where on the Hill, you'll get a lot of people who, on the Hill will be fuck you, you're a Democrat, or fuck you, you're a Republican, and they'll be at each other's throats on the Hill, right, when, the C-SPAN cameras are rolling, but, afterwards, they all, go out and grab beers together when no one is watching.
There used to be a lot more of the collegiality of grabbing beers together and that kind of thing, and there was a time when politics was less rhetorical and vitriolic than it is now, and part of that was due to the collegiality that they had, that the, members of Congress had. So, if you're working on a bipartisan bill, if you're working on a piece of legislation that you want to get passed, you are going to, as a staffer, reach out to another office. Maybe it's a Democrat. Maybe you need a Democrat on there to get it credence on the House floor. You're going to be totally cordial. The staff we're kind of tribal every now and then, but, for the most part, it's like, we want to be friendly and professional with everybody up there because you might need, some Democrat on energy and commerce to sponsor an amendment on your bill or approve the amendment on your bill or be a co-signer on a piece of legislation in order to get a good, solid piece of law made, So for the most part, the staff are very, very professional. We don't want to burn any bridges. That's not our place. Our place is to be the instrument of the congressman who is the instrument of the constituency. I hope that's a reasonable answer.
Sure. What do you think is responsible for, I guess, the lack of collegiality these days?
Well, it's a very multifaceted, you could say when Newt Gingrich was Speaker of the House, he changed the House calendar to allow for more time in the district and spaced out the weeks that the members would be in D.C. legislating. So you have 2 weeks on and a week or two off and whatever, doing district work, and people don't want to buy houses here anymore. So they're not, living with other members. They're not having the time. They fly in on a Monday and fly out on a Thursday. And then the next week they fly in on, Monday night or Tuesday. They do their media hits. They do their committee hearings, and then they fly out on Thursday. I mean, there's little soirees and receptions in between where they might meet people, but I think, there has been a cloistering, of the members. There's less collegiality because of the calendar, because of social media, there's a number of things, because of the issues that we're dealing with today, because of the culture war in society. There are all kinds of reasons that there's less of that going on,
So in other words, what you're saying is it's multifaceted then?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I don't think there's one thing, but it's a confluence of certain things that, yeah.
Because so often these days, you either have the Republicans saying that, that Barack Obama was responsible for the divisiveness, or you have the Democrats saying that Trump is responsible for the divisiveness. We've the one thing you hear is, well, politics was never this divisive until X, Y, Z, until X, until, name your person entered into politics. And I'm kind of like, well,
I think we have to reframe.
It's a bit more complicated than that. We have to look at
the broader arc of history. There have been times when there was, relatively, people were pretty satisfied with the government. Things were going fine. We're cruising right along. Maybe it was 12 years or whatever. I can't remember what that time was, but there was a time in history where that was the age of. I don't know.
I feel like, and this is looking at it from a historical perspective, but I feel like looking back, the 1950s kind of seemed like an era where we had just won, World War II. Everything was kind of hunky dory. We had the, we had Americans moving into the suburbs, and the Cold War existed, but it wasn't really at its height until the 60s, through the 80s or something like that. And I'm sure things weren't perfect in the 50s either. because nothing ever is.
No. I mean, we were dealing with the Cold War, with nuclear proliferation, with, Russia, building up, amassing military force in Eastern Europe. I mean, which in a sense we're, dealing with today, of course, but...
Well, I mean, I guess from my perspective, it just seems like the more... I mean, I guess things have always kind of been chaotic, just the fact that we have more access to information now means that we also have, like, more access to, like, real-time events and whatnot. So therefore, like, we're getting more of, like, a study of information, and unfortunately a lot of what we get is, information about, like, bad news and whatnot.
So I think it's a really interesting question, and there is something to be said about a certain strain of politics that we're dealing with today that we haven't really had to deal with since, like, the Civil War.
Right.
Which is a foundational disagreement among people about the cultural traditions that make up the DNA of this country. There is a fundamental rebellion against Western culture in the United States and in Europe. And we have not, in our lifetime we dealt with this. Our parents have dealt with this. Our grandparents are dealing with this contemporaneously, concomitantly with us. But in their heyday, there wasn't really a question. I mean, abortion wasn't really talked about, necessarily. I mean, we had, feminism, first wave feminism, second wave, and, we are experiencing second wave and kind of third wave now, but, like...
Third and fourth wave.
Right, yeah, and then whatever the heck, DeWorkin or whatever is, Catherine McKinnon, whatever they're on, I don't even know, But, like, we are, I think they're, for the first time in American history, outside of the Civil War, and you know what, I'm not the greatest student of history, I'm sitting in an armchair, you know what I'm saying, like, so please, somebody who has a deeper, knowledge of history, reprove me, I want to learn, I'm a student, but I do believe that there is, in this time, in history, a strength in the counterculture that is so strong that the status quo, the conservative status quo that maintains the traditions and values and political institutions of the West is actually being challenged. Ontologically challenged. Like, we are dealing with an ontological challenge to Western societies, to the continuity of Western society. And it started in the 60s, and we didn't think it was a major thing, but the heirs of Russia, this anti-religious, anti-Christian, sentiment is no longer a sentiment. That's the problem. It's actually embedded itself in institutions. It's become institutionalized in our public schools, in our Fortune 500, companies. It is something that is radically challenging the status quo of this country. And you can look at any revolution throughout history. The first revolution in Russia in 1917, or somewhere thereabouts, I'm not totally accurate on the date, the Red and White Revolution, was not successful because they had a great leader, a leader who was very, very much, using rhetoric and whipping up the crowds and getting, the masses behind him. They had funding, they had arms, they had what they needed to be a successful revolution. What they did not have was a lackadaisical conservative element. Conservative in the traditional sense of conserving the status quo, the government, the institutions of the Tsar. You know, the conservatives in the first revolution in Russia were very strong. They were not going to be shaken. The status quo was going to be maintained. But the First World War and then the onset of the Second World War totally diminished the power of the conservatives. Liberal elites came in who agreed, who infiltrated the wealth, the pockets of wealth, and the pockets of institutional power, and were able to bring down the status quo. And that's what happened in Russia. And I think, you know, we are, you know, I'm not an Armageddonist or whatever the word is.
Right.
You know, I'm not there, but I do believe we are being faced with one of the most intense challenges of the Western world. And that has nothing to do with Anglo-Saxons or you know, whatever race you are. It has nothing to do with that. And to frame it in that way is to give in to their nomenclature. To frame it that way is to give in to their nomenclature. And that's the problem with, you know, the Proud Boys or these elements of the right that are bringing it down to a racial, you know, white Anglo-Saxon, you know, Western history. It's not just that, you know. The largest democracy on earth is not white Anglo-Saxon. It's India, you know.
Well, I mean, so...
and I would include India in the Anglosphere, quite frankly. You know, I mean, I honestly would. Their culture, their traditions are all bending in that way. We have some problems with Hindu nationalism, whatever, and granted, every society's got their things, but I mean, I would incorporate them in the Anglosphere for sure.
Well, I mean,
which is beyond Anglo-Saxon, beyond race, beyond Caucasian or whatever. You know, I'm not framing it in that way at all.
So I made this point on Saturday's show. Again, this episode, you know, people are hearing this on Tuesday. So on Saturday's show, I talked a bit with Jack Pierce about people like you know, Nick Fuentes, you know, who claims to be America First and the leader of, you know, the Gripers, which I still don't know what that means. I know you and I talked a bit off air about that, but it's just... What's interesting to me is, like, I understand, because, right, the thing about, like, a lot of people on my side, I would consider myself, you know, kind of, like, conservative / libertarian, you know, ish, kind of. That's kind of where I've targeted my show. Right, the right, so to speak, always likes to talk about the left-wing SJWs, you know, that are trying to overthrow, you know, Western culture and whatnot, like you've, you know, described, you know, the cultural Marxists and whatnot. Those people are dangerous, right, in my opinion, and I think you would agree.
Yeah.
Equally dangerous, though, are kind of these radical. I don't even want to call, like, the Gripers or the Proud Boys, you know, really like. And the thing with the Proud Boys too is, like, when the Proud Boys started, it was just a fraternal men's order. It didn't start out as like a radical group necessarily. It was just like a men's organization. But then it, like, it's shifted into this weird, like, ethno-national thing, because, like, there was no central leadership. So, I mean, I think we've gotten to the point where, like, both factions are... We're in a world where, like, I think you have really radical, left-wing factions. You have really radical right-wing factions that aren't very big, right? They're not very big in size, but they scream and they holler a lot. So therefore,
which, I mean, I think we're waiting on that pendulum to swing back. I think we've been in a very, very divisive time. I mean, there's no doubt about that. I don't care if it's Obama, I don't care if it's Trump, whatever the case may be, the society has been very divisive. And you're right, those people have been very loud forces, that have kind of taken control of the narrative, if you will. But I think on the whole, Americans are fairly conservative, I think, on the whole, and moderate, honestly,
I mean, I know lots of... I mean, and I'm not even being hyperbolic here. Like, my opinion, like, politically, is that, like, you should be able to own, you should be able to, like, own guns, like, grow weed, and, like, I forget what the saying is, but, like, I want my gay neighbor to be able to, like, get married to his boyfriend and have, like, a fully automatic, rifle and grow pot in their backyard. Like, that's kind of my, and that's kind of like a libertarian utopia I do. But, like, honestly, like, that, that is something that I kind of, like, politically, like, just do your own thing as long as you're not, like, harming anyone and doing any harm. Like, just have at it, right? But then, like, I know that's not, like, we don't live in that world, right? Where, like,
and I would definitely challenge you on that for sure. I'm someone who believes that the family is the basic unit of society, of all societies.
I do too, personally speaking. I just mean as far as politics goes. Like, politically speaking, I don't, I just kind of want the government to leave people alone. Now, if we want to get into morality, and into spirituality, I think that's up to us as individuals to kind of, take that approach. But the government is terrible at doing things. In general, that I think the bureaucracy, so I think it's up to us as, like, individuals to do more, if that makes sense. So,
I mean, yes, like, I am a free market capitalist, and I got you there, but I do think that the government has, and let me say it this way, the government is, for the people, by the people. And if we have people in government who are legislating to allow for the breakdown of the family, the basic unit of society, then we need to meet them where they're at and face them in the government. Or else they will have the law on their side.
Right.
So that's the challenge we're dealing with. Is if our conservatives, our Republicans in this country were people who, believed what you just believed, we would have already lost the culture war. If they compartmentalized like you compartmentalized, we would have already lost the culture war. if we did not go into the classrooms and challenge what teachers are teaching kids about sexuality and about religion, we would lose the culture war. But we are meeting them right there, and we're saying, no, you cannot teach a 5-year-old that they can be a boy or a girl and confuse them. You cannot do that in this country. So we are not only defending, lower taxes and lower regulation on small businesses, which is great, and we need to do that. But we are now defending the minds of our youth and protecting them from literal Marxist insanity. And I don't use the word Marxist lightly, but we're talking about atheistic atheism, atheistic Marxism being taught in our schools. Like, yeah, there's a time and a place for that, but when you're 5 years old, no, we need to set our children up with a foundation that says the Constitution is a great thing. This is a union formed under God, period. This is a union formed under a higher power. And we are a society with a social contract, and this government is a representative government, so on and so forth.
And to be clear, I'm not saying that we shouldn't.
I don't mean to get. I'm sorry for getting riled up, but I mean, we have to. This battle is being fought in the trenches, and those trenches are the classrooms, literally.
Well, it's not only in the classrooms; it's in Hollywood too. It's it's in.
Buddy, have you been on Netflix lately? By Jove, that's some crazy stuff.
Oh yeah, no, and listen, I agree with you that we should completely fight. I mean, I agree with you 100%. My whole thing is that there's a way to do it, right? There's a way to do it tactfully, and there are people like you who want to, discuss things and have an actual debate and discussion with people. There are other people, the gripers, for example, who just want to say the most edgy things possible, and the January 6th protesters. I mean, I don't know if we want to get into January 6th. I know that's kind of a touchy topic, but
we can get into January 6th, but let me just say this really quick. I appreciate dialogue and conversation and debate, but I am not in government just for that. I'm in government to make the law. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, I'm a cog in the wheel right now. I work for one congressman in a certain set of policy areas. But we're here to take society, and to make sure that our institutions, our traditions are maintained. We're not here for just discussion. We are boots on the ground making law. That's it.
I agree.
Discussion is part of that, and meeting with stakeholders is part of that. Totally. But
I agree completely. But okay, so I guess segueing into January 6th, there are people who agree with you that is that we need change, and some of those people think that basically storming the Capitol is the way to that change, that causing an insurrection is the way to make that change. Now, you and I have talked, off air kind of about, and also you had just moved to D.C. shortly thereafter, after January 6th happens. So, what was that aftermath like? I mean, was it anything that affected you working at the Capitol, or what was that like? Right. Yeah. The transfer. Yeah. And yeah. Yeah, no, I had well, it's interesting because I had written a column. No, no, go ahead. Well, I had written back in 2015 before Trump was even the nominee. I had written that like I think Trump's popularity was kind of like a polar reaction to Obama. Like Obama had gone so far to the left in his tenure. And in my book, Trump was never really that right wing. I still don't think he really is that right wing. But I think kind of the reaction to Trump, quote unquote, being right wing was kind of like a reaction like, okay, so the pendulum swung so far to the left, therefore it has to go to the right, and hopefully it will even out. I'm curious what was I mean, briefly, like, what did you think of Trump's presidency? Like, aside from like Trump being like, loudmouth and Trump being like having his personality. I mean, you can talk about those too, but like I guess like what did you think of Trump like as president and like just overall? That's part one. I mean, now, I guess nowadays it is, but yeah. But Trump is also Trump, and yeah. So I which which le- yeah the the shit poster in me really loved his just how he would just piss off the mainstream media, and just like give him hell. I I certainly think it was I certainly yeah. I think I think the fact that they mostly went after his personal life, I think that was pretty hilarious that like they kind of had. Well, I mean, to be fair, he didn't really have any policy to go after like prior to becoming president, right? But like, I mean, I don't know. I just think that Trump was like such like a game changer in terms of like politics in general that like no one really knew what to do. Um, so like, and believe me, I was skeptical of Trump at the beginning, but like the more the campaign progressed, like I saw why people liked him. You know, because he is a businessman, and yeah, he might have failed a couple times. But I mean, I was pleasantly surprised that he succeeded in a lot of areas too. That we didn't go into massive foreign wars. That the economy got on track. Uh, you know, and credit where credit is due. He did handle COVID. I mean, COVID was just such a shit show in general that I think it was impossible for anyone to handle that well. But I think he did a decent job in his final year. But I guess what do you think of the future of the Republican Party? Like, do you think Trump should run again? Like, what do you see as the future, especially like being on the ground? Because I'm just a guy here in Florida sitting in an armchair. You're in the nation's capital, baby. What what would what would you like to see? I guess like if the RNC reached out to you and said, "Okay, Luke Nickless, you're a smart guy. You're a young guy. Like, tell us what we need to do to." I mean, and if you can't comment for reasons, I understand that, too. I I I I have to be honest, Luke. I appreciate your answer that you don't know, that you are kind of uncertain about the future because so many people that I meet, a lot of whom you and I both agree with, are either like, well, Trump's got to be the nominee in 2024, or DeSantis has to be the nominee in 2024. Part of me would really like to see Trump in office, in 2024 again. Partially as a big FU to Biden, and also because I think he still had some good policy, but at the same time, I think the Republican Party needs to look past Trump. I think the Make America Great Again movement can still exist, but it needs to go beyond Trump. As far as DeSantis goes. Well, yeah, yeah. Mm. I I honestly think people think I'm an asshole when I say that Biden has dementia. I'm not being an asshole when I say that. I legitimately think he has, some cognitive issues. Um, yeah, I mean, he's in his late 70s. I know that. Um, Still though, I mean, and to be and to be honest, like honestly, I don't even think he wanted. I mean, and to be to be clear, like I don't want to get you in any hot water, but like part of the reason why people think the election is rigged, why a lot of my audience thinks the election was rigged, was because there was no energy behind Biden. It was all, we got to get Trump out of office. With Hillary, at least there was some energy behind the base. Although, on the flip side, I honestly, if Hillary doesn't run in 2016, like if that had never happened, I don't think Trump would have even gotten close to where he did in the primaries. Certainly not president. I honestly think this was kind of my this was kind of like the mindset I had and a lot of people had was, oh, okay, you're going to nominate Hillary Clinton, who's just greedy and has always been on politics. Well, if you're going to play that game, then you know then screw you guys. We'll just nominate Trump and see where this shit show goes. And I think that was kind of what happened in 2016. I think 2024 is going to be a way different. I think it's either going to be Hillary. I mean, it's either going to be Biden or Kamala, or I think it's going to be someone who we haven't even considered yet. And then same with the Republicans. I think it's going to be way different in the future. So, her, her, yeah, her approval rating is lower than Biden's. And the weird thing is she doesn't even like Biden that much. I mean, she called Biden like a predator. dur- yeah, during the primary. So, um, but yeah. Anyway, do I need to go? Are you go down? Are you still? Okay. Yeah, no, that's fine. Mm, well, the I'm really hoping. I mean, party is like, yes, let DeSantis run. Party two is like, part of me is like, let DeSantis run in 2028 because I'm a selfish. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm selfish, but like when it comes to Florida, I am a selfish son of a bitch. He's been the best governor of my lifetime in any state we've had, and well, I want him to be able to finish like a full term, his second full term of governor. No, uh, I I think it's a woman if I'm not mistaken. Um, yeah, it's not Pam Bondi. She was the AG of Florida. Good looking woman, by the way. But no, yeah, no, in regards to Kamala, like, I'm not even saying this to be like mean or hyperbolic. The only thing I see the Democrats running her on, and this kind of, it almost seems like this will be the eventual like thing for the Democrats because this is what they go is, oh, she's a black woman, so it's. I don't. Yeah. Well, I don't even think that the Demo. What has Biden done? I mean that, you know. I mean it. People say that people say that like the marketing is right, that Biden is like Obama 2.0, but a lot of Democrats are kind of like, even some Democrats I know are like, yeah, Joe Biden, oh, well, it's yeah. Disastrously too, I might add. No, no, yeah. Yeah, but I mean, even things like Afghanistan, like that was, yeah. Even Afghanistan, though, like that was like a debacle, and even the Democrats were like, yeah, no, that was bad. Like, maybe we should have had Trump for that. So, like, right, yeah. Did did you hear the clip of Trevor Noah basically like kind of mocking, well, not mocking Biden, but like satirizing him and saying, I bet there are times where he said, I bet there are times where Biden wishes that Trump was in the room or something, for like, dealing with like foreign powers and, military. I'm I'm not even sure if Biden is aware of what room he's in half the time. Uh, and I mean, and like I said, I'm not even joking with that. I mean, Biden's, cognitive things are, you know, very questionable to say the least. So I don't know, man. I mean, I think politics is never boring, that's for sure. Yeah, one. Yeah, let me ask you this. Do you have like political aspirations to like run for office, or but but you're not going to be president like Luke Jackson Nick, you don't have that aspiration at this point. That would be a really cool presidential name though. Luke Jackson Nicholas. Um so um yeah, I mean I don't mean to like blow smoke up your ass, but I mean you have you have really good political insights. I mean, I think I have some good ones too. But like, you're not a snob. Um, you're accessible, but you know your things. Which is why I wanted to have you on. So I guess kind of on the lighter, side of things, though, like, what has been your favorite thing about, like, living in DC, though, so far? Sure, sure. Oh my God. Yeah, yeah, yeah. What are drink prices there? Eh, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, that whole thing became a meme, but like, yeah, but yeah, no. I mean, as far as like drinks and whatnot go, like, are there any like haunts in DC that you like to go to, or is that like classified information? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, which is kind of funny because you're living in a town where you have to spend money to kind of just like, live. I mean, I don't want to say you're dirt poor. I mean, you don't seem, but I mean, I bet some of your like bills and whatnot are kind of like yeesh. So too, but. Um, I will also reveal to the audience that you are both I mean, I've made reference to this before. I have a coffee guy. Surprise, Luke is that coffee guy. And you're also my whiskey guy. So, what is your favorite, like, type of coffee? And, like, Do you have a do you have like a coffee maker at home or like a or are you like what? Okay, so you're not like one of those you're not like one of those Keurig snobs then. Okay. Yeah, you're I could drink it, but I also might, it might like I might, I might be defecating my intestines out later because it's the um but well, I mean, office coffee can clean you out, so but yeah, and also like I'm not I mean, I'm starting to get into whiskey, but it seems like since you've been involved, like you've gotten more into whiskey and whatnot. So, right. Neither do I. Uh, please, please tell them to go to the Guinness Storehouse in Ireland if they're not already planning on it. And I haven't been to Ireland. My old man has been to. No, no, no. I wish. I mean, I would love to do like a travel vlog type thing. Do oh yeah, do tell. Yeah. Yep, yep. Well, I'll tell you what was fun just to kind of go down memory lane. Like, I believe it was senior year. Like they took us senior year of high school. Like we went to like a Rockies game or like a few, uh, or was that did we do anything for? Oh, okay. That yeah, that's going back. That yeah. Yeah, that was fun. I can't remember what our thing our senior year of high school was. I mean, I know that some people like supposedly like at our high school like they ransacked that clock tower or something. Um, which mm, which I may or may not have known people who were in on. Yeah, I my idea of a senior prank. This was just how nerdy I was. My idea of like a senior prank was ripping off posters of the Young Democrats club in high school. Me and well, one of the we did, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, not that that really stopped us from meeting, like unofficially, but, you know, I remember, and I mean, I've told this, I remember I told this story. So I was like one of the editors of the school newspaper senior year. I remember we had this, I remember we had like Amnesty International Day, like senior year. And I remember like we had this one like Uber, like she wasn't even like a second wave feminist, she was like a third wave feminist. I basically left. One of the security guards like tried to like basically keep me in, and I basically said like I will cause a scene if you don't let me. Um, and he would. Oh, you heard of my you heard of me playing hooky while still being in school? Um, so yeah, so she was so this so we had this chick like later in the afternoon, like before international, and she was talking like how all I remember this very clearly. Like she began her whole thing of like every single senior guy in this auditorium is a potential rapist. Right? That was her starting line. And I was like and I was like so close to being like just being like lady, what the fuck? I was gonna like shout something out, but I didn't. So she continued on, and I'm like, okay, well, rather than cause a scene, I'm just gonna leave. So then I started to leave, and John, the security guard, who, I'm sure I mean, we all had run-ins with him on occasion at being, students. He tried to keep it clean, and I'm like, I'm like, I want out of here. This guy, and he's like, well, I can't let you leave because you're supposed to fill out like this thing, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll fill out the thing, like, oh, yeah. So, and he was like, don't tell anyone I let you out. He was like, but between you and I, like, yeah, I agree with you. This is a bunch of bullshit. So basically, like I just barricaded. I went back to the student newspaper office and just like barricaded myself in there. I had just gotten an iPad, so I just like streamed Netflix for the entire. I mean, Netflix I think started streaming in like 2013, right? That was I I wish they still had DVD delivery. Well, and then I remember Patrick McGuire came in and was like, "Hey, hey, what have you been doing?" And I'm like, "Eh, I've just been hanging out here." So, yeah, I mean, our group was just, you know, we had fun in high school. So, um, but I mean, we've had even more fun since then. At least the times that you and I have gotten together. So, but Um, well, anyway, man, any final thoughts? Anything that, any, juicy information out you have to share with the audience? Any. Well, thank you. All right. Anytime, man. And I would ask you if you have anything to promote. I know though that you don't really at this point, other than just I guess you could tell the audience to do their civic duty and like vote and whatnot, and um. Other than that, though, I mean, Luke, you're welcome back anytime. And if you ever do decide to like start a podcast or do anything of your own, just let me know. I'd be happy to help you. And all right, man. Well, I really appreciate you and folks. I really appreciate you for tuning in and. I know we had a little bit of a audio hiccup there, kind of towards the beginning, but hopefully that segment, I think it's saved, so that should be okay. But anyway, from all of us here at NGC Studios, God bless, God save this great nation, God, freedom, and legacy in that order, and we will see you on the next show. Thank you very much.